All right, all right. Well, it is 8:10. We were going to do our Patreon hangout tonight at 8. But a couple people couldn't do it that normally do it, and so that was too bad. And then one guy joined, but it was a tough time for him. He's putting his kids to bed and stuff like that. So what I decided to do was just to do the Patreon Q&A tonight. I was planning on doing it on Friday, which is usually a good day for the Patreon Q&A because usually not a lot going on Friday. But I figured I'd do it today and release it today just so you have it in your hands. Let me say this. I thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. You know, all the stuff that's happening, guys, like even just the book that came out, you know, I wouldn't be able to have dedicated the time to write the book if I wasn't being supported on Patreon. It would have been very hard for me to justify, you know, taking the time away from my normal job, excuse me, you know, my main income, without, you know, the support I get on Patreon. Because I got the channel, I got, you know, daily videos, I got writing a book, you know, doing my normal job, got 3 kids and stuff like that. And my wife helps me out a ton. Obviously, you know, she's a gift from God, no question about it, and she takes care of the kids a lot. But even so thank you, you know, guys, you know, all the patrons, you were part of making the book possible. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Before we get into the Q&A, though, what I will say is I discovered a new YouTube channel. I posted a video about it just today, and I had to delete it because it was just the quality of the video was so terrible. It wasn't that I said anything bad or anything. I just even for me, I don't have the greatest quality on some of my content, but the video and audio quality. But this one was especially bad, so I just took it down. But his guy's name is Rick Caldwell. His channel is called Rick Caldwell. And I loved it. I was watching a video where he interviewed and talked to Ruslan. And, you know, he did a good job with this guy. Like, he's very calm. He's got a calm demeanor. But he doesn't let him get away with any of the nonsense. You know, Ruslan tries his normal tactics, his normal, in my opinion, his weaselly tactics. And this guy does not ridicule him, doesn't rip him, very, very calm, but does not let him get away with nonsense, which I appreciate. And then at one point in the interview, he raises his voice a little bit. I was trying to find the clip, but I couldn't find it very quick. He's talking to him, and Ruslan's trying to say that, you know, kind of like, you know, we can kind of agree to disagree on justice. You know, it's not an essential of the faith. And this guy, Rick, says, I think it is an essential of the faith. And how this comes up is Ruslan asks Rick, he says, who do you think has a more serious error? Do you think Arminians have a more serious error, or do you think Eric Mason has a more serious error? And I think he was baiting Rick a little bit because I think he thought, oh, Rick is this reform guy. He's definitely going to say Arminians. But Rick didn't hesitate. He said Eric Mason, hands down. And he couldn't believe it. And he started to say that, you know, justice is sort of this tertiary issue. It's important, but we shouldn't let it divide us and stuff. And Rick wasn't having that. And he said, and this is where he raised his voice. He said, because in the Bible it says that the throne of Yahweh himself is on justice and righteousness, is built on justice and righteousness. I might be having the quotation wrong, but essentially it's important to him, according to the book of the book of God, the book God gave us, the Bible, you know. And he raised his voice when he said that, and it was just so powerful, the range, because he was so calm and so, you know, even keeled. And then when it came to the character of Yahweh, he got forceful, and I appreciated that so much. And I almost got chills when I was like, whoa, that was like, man, don't yell at me now. You know what I mean? Like one of those. You ever hear a sermon like that where you're just like, oh, don't look at me, Pastor? You know, that kind of thing. And the whole reason I bring this up, and sorry for the sidetrack, but I think I need to work on that. I think I need to work on my tone. Can you believe that? A.D. Robles thinks he needs to work on his tone. But it's not in the sense of like, oh, well, if you're mean or you joke or you do this or that, then that's sinful. I don't believe that. I think it can be. It depends on, you know, what you're doing and all that. But that's not what I'm talking about. But what I mean is, though, that if you're flamethrower all the time, which I don't think I am, but I think sometimes my shtick can be a little bit aggressive. If you're aggressive all the time, then eventually it almost loses its power, right? Because it's just like, well, that's just how AD is. And again, I don't think that that's how I am, but I do think I could use some work on this where, if I'm raising my voice or if I'm getting, if I'm getting energetic, or you can feel it, that you can tell. You know what I mean? There's a dynamic range there, I guess you could say. Because, it's like playing music, right? If everything's fortissimo, then nothing's fortissimo. It just all sounds the same. But if you get those dynamic ranges where it's like, okay, we got soft, 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 and then all of a sudden, it really hits you in the face kind of thing, it can be more effective. And so, I don't know, man. Rick, if you see this video, I doubt you will, but you gave me a lot to think about. I think this comes with age, and I'm not trying to call you old, Rick, but I did notice that you had some white hair on that beard, and you earned that, man. That's that wisdom that you get. That the gray hairs come with wisdom, I think, and so I need to get a little bit more of that. I look forward to the day when I'm gray and I got a little bit more wisdom. But anyway, in the meantime, even though I'm just a dope, a lot of you guys have asked me some questions. So, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not a dope. All right, so let's get to the questions here. God bless you all. Thank you so much for these. Let me just get to them. There's a lot of them today. So, okay, here's the first question. He says, why is the main question about vaccines that most Christians are working through is, quote, is it wise to get an unproven vaccine when, quote, is it a sin to use a vaccine that was developed with the use of murdered baby cells would seem to trump that? I haven't personally settled on it, but even churches that have been faithful for the last year seem to be flat-footed in dealing with this. Looking forward to the news. I'm not really sure exactly what the question is, at least the end part there, but it's valid. And brother, I don't know why that's the case. I think that one of the reasons it might be that the scientific side of this is complicated, and so it's hard to work through that stuff. It's a good question. How are the abortion cells used? And it's like is any of it legitimate? Like, was it harvested? Like, what happened? Or were these already existing and all that kind of stuff? It almost doesn't even matter, really, because if okay, so they killed a baby before, so now we're going to use its life essence to save us today. Like, that's a little bit weird. I don't know, man. I don't know. I have no idea why that's the case. And to be honest with you, I've heard about this, of course. I personally haven't researched it that much, and I don't know what that's about. You think that would be something I'd be on the forefront of, and it's just something that I put in the back burner. And maybe you've kind of convicted me a little bit here because I should probably look into this. You know what I mean? Because that certainly seems to be a moral issue. You know what I mean? Like, that's a problem. That's a big problem. So I don't know, commenter, but thanks for the question. Sorry I didn't really answer it. All right, next question. Under what conditions must a son or daughter obey their parents' demand that they not marry someone? For example, Bob wants to marry Sally, but Bob's dad says he can't. Are there situations where Bob must obey? Are there situations where Bob may disobey? Yeah, so I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to weasel on this one as well. I think the answer to your question is yes, there are situations where you should obey your father, and there are situations where it might make sense to obey disobey the person's father. You really need to be in a good church and a person who knows everyone in the situation, and you need to get counsel with your pastor, and you need to get counsel with numerous people. I think that there's wisdom in getting counsel from wise people that people that are in your church, people that know the situation, they know you, and all that kind of stuff. And it could very well be that your dad's exactly right. You shouldn't be marrying her, or I guess in this example, he shouldn't be marrying her. That kind of thing. I don't think you should just assume that you're right and your dad is just a boomer. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think you should assume that. You should take the words of your father very seriously. But I could easily see examples where it would be like, no, that's not what I'm going to do. Like, your father's a drunk or something. He's a drunk, or he's an addict or something like that. And, there's a history there of recklessness and ridiculousness and all kinds of shenanigans. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't take my father's advice. If my father was an addict, you know what I mean? I wouldn't take my father's advice on, where to go for dinner that day. You know what I mean? Like it just all depends. And so I'm not going to answer, specifics because obviously you're not giving me specifics. But in cases where you disagree, number one, don't just assume that your father's just a boomer, especially if he's not an addict. He's a reasonable guy in general, and he loves you. You know that. Take your father's word seriously, because the chances of someone being emotional and not thinking straight between the people that are supposedly in love and the father, the third party, there's a higher chance of the people that are in the relationship that they're not thinking straight than the third party, than the father. That doesn't mean that the father's ultimately right, but don't assume that he's just wrong. I can think of many examples in my own life where I was giving advice to someone that I loved very much and said, "Get out of this relationship. I want you to have, someone. I want you to have a husband or wife, whatever. But this is no good. You should stop this. This is insane. You know what I mean? That kind of thing." And I was exactly right. It's not like I had it out for them or anything, and it ended in disaster and all that kind of stuff. Like just don't assume that you're not the chemicals in your brain, that make you think warm and fuzzy feelings about him or her aren't skewing your perspective. It's very likely that they could be. So I think getting a lot of counsel will be helpful, especially with people that you can trust. And hopefully that's your father. If you can't trust your father, then that's a different story. So anyway, sorry for the weaselly answer. I hope it helps. God bless you. Next question. This is a twofer. I noticed you started reading from the King James Version recently in your videos. What's the reason for this? Is it personal preference, or are you King James preferred in the vein of Douglas Wilson? Yeah, so there is a reason, and number one, I like the idea of just being another thing that pisses everybody off. You know what I mean? No, but I'm not King James preferred or anything like that. I like reading it. I like just the I like having the extra sort of like, ADs are sort of one of those fundies. Like, I'm not trying to placate anybody, and I want that to be very obvious. But I don't only read from the King James. I only do it when the language isn't a barrier. Like, everyone knows what thou means and thee means and stuff like that. So if a verse says that, that's okay. But there's words and there's like language that nobody understands. And if that's the case, then I won't read it. I'll just read the ESV. I'll read the NASB, whatever makes the most sense. So, there is a reason there, and I kind of like the built-in. Limiter of my channel a little bit. That might sound stupid, but I kind of like it, and plus it draws attention, which is obvious from your question. So no, I'm not King James only or King James preferred. However, I like the King James. I think it's good, and I think some of the choices that it makes are good. And that's all I'll say. Okay. Next question from the same person. Perhaps this has been asked before, but what convinced you to go from Baptist to Presbyterian? Great question. And I'll give you two answers. One, there was a video and book called Baptism is Not Enough. That's what got me thinking about that. But really, it was a change in my attitude towards the Old Testament. Because when I was a baby Christian, I didn't really know what to do with the Old Testament. I knew I had to agree with it because I was a believer and it came from God. But I knew that much, but there were things in it that I didn't understand, so I just kind of ignored it and made excuses for it and stuff like that. But once I realized that, actually the Old Testament is the Word of God, like for real, and He really expects us to fear God and obey His commandments, and that includes the ones in the Old Testament, at least the ones that are still for Christians, not the Jewish code and stuff like that. It changed my whole outlook on that, and I started to understand the New Testament in light of the Old Testament. In other words, I understood that they were expecting the Messiah. I understood the way that that covenants worked then, and I understand how God dealt with people then, and so I can understand how God through Christ was dealing with people even today, and so I could understand some of that stuff. And so, obviously, the New Testament is, some of it anyway, is almost like a commentary on some of the Old Testament, and I really like that. So once I realized that I had to take the Old Testament seriously as well, it kind of changed my whole perspective, and that's kind of what brought me there. So Baptism is Not Enough is the non-biblical book that helped me out there. but really it was just a whole way of looking at the Bible as a whole. You know what I mean? I, I I went from being someone who was like scared when an atheist would bring up the Old Testament to someone who was like, yeah, I believe in giants and unicorns, and that's all there is to it. I'm happy about it. You know what I mean? So that's what I'll say. All right. Next question. Who is the most extreme person you occasionally or regularly read or listen to, whether you agree with him or not? Yeah, that's a good question. I would say probably Owen Benjamin. He's probably the most extreme person, and I don't really regularly listen to him, but more regularly than any other extreme person. And he's a comedian, you know. He's you know, he likes conspiracy stuff, and he's a homesteader and stuff like that. And he, you know, he says some wild things that I don't agree with at all. But then he says some things that are very insightful, you know, and all that. And he's pretty funny in general. Some things he does aren't that funny, but he's pretty funny in general, at least in my opinion. So, I don't listen to him regularly because I don't really have time to listen to pretty much anything regularly. But he's definitely the most extreme, at least traditionally speaking. So, yeah, that's what I'll say. All right, next question from the same person. If Al Mohler is elected president of the SBC, will more woke churches or anti-woke churches leave the denomination? I think that if Al Mohler is elected president of the SBC, you'll get both of that. I think that it will be more woke churches that will leave because they're more activist. In other words, like conservatives, just by nature, don't really protest. You know, like what happened on January 6th. One of the reasons why I'm most suspicious of it is that's just so out of character for conservatives, at least these days. But you know, liberals will burn your house down, and they don't care. You know, they're activists. So I think you'll get both happening because Al Mohler would probably be the most divisive president of all time, and I don't think it's anything he'll do. It's just he's a divisive person. You know what I mean? Like he people see him for what he is, and hardly anybody likes him. You know what I mean? At least of the two major camps. A lot of people in the middle like him. But what you'll get is some of the more extreme elements that'll leave. I think that just by nature, woke churches are more likely to leave. That's just my opinion, though. I might be reading that wrong, and maybe he'll be the great uniter of the SBC. I highly doubt it because one side of this issue will not be united with you no matter what, and that's just all there is to it. Anyway, that's just my take. Next question. How would you talk to someone who is so hurt and angry about their past mistreatment by religious people, for example, the independent fundamentalist Baptists, that they end up obstinately just basically constantly criticizing conservatism and turning a blind eye to the evil pagan agenda, and sometimes even defending it, especially if this person holds some spiritual authority? Man, well, it all depends on my relationship with the person. And you know, I think that you need to confront them. And this is probably if you know them a little bit better. This is not like when you first time you meet somebody, but you need to confront them with what they're doing, and you need to confront them with in my opinion, the fact that what you're doing is you're overcorrecting, right? Some people hurt you, and now you're on a tear against anything conservative, and so you need to realize that you're doing that. You're a slave to a narrative that Christians are bigoted and homophobic and fundamentalist and all this kind of stuff. You can't do that. You can't overcorrect that way to the point where it's no longer correct. And that's what I would do. I would just that's just that's my approach with most people. I don't like to beat around the bush. And someone just messaged me just a moment ago and said, "Hey, AD, I'm going to a new church. Like, how would you recommend asking if they're pro Revoice? Like, how would you get that information?" And I just told him, I was like, I just ask. You know what I mean? Like, hey, man, what do you think of Revoice? What do you think of this woke stuff, Jamar Tisby? Like that. Like, if it was me, that's what I would do. You know what I mean? Because there's no sense in beating around the bush, in my opinion. So that's how I would do it. You know, if there was someone that I knew was doing what you're describing here, I'd just be straight up with them. It's like, I love you, you know, but like it certainly seems to me that you're letting your past hurts dictate what you do now, instead of the scripture dictating what you do now, and you can't do that. God's not going to give you a pass or a graded curve. He doesn't grade on a curve or stuff like that. You got to preach that truth straight up, no matter who hurt you in the past, because God's not going to be trifled with. You can't claim to be speaking for God when you're not. So, hey, thanks for the question. That's what I would do. Again, it all depends on your relationship with the person. The next question has to do with supralapsarianism and infralapsarianism. And it's just not an issue that I know enough about to really even comment on it. I'm not saying it's not an important issue, but I just don't know. So, sorry, buddy. All right. Next question. My church holds to the three forms of unity and is going through the Belgic Confession. The first part states that God is a spiritual being. Does that statement exclude the fact that God became a man and therefore physical? If so, how does it disregard the Council of Ephesus and Chalcedon that Christ is truly God and man? I personally take it to guard against claims that the entire Godhead is physical and that it is unique that Christ is spirit who took on physical form. All this means that I feel comfortable saying God in the person of Christ died. God has hands, God has a body. Please let me know if I'm totally wrong or not on this one. No, I think you're right. I don't think that the three forms of unity is saying that God, the Son, is not doesn't have a physical body right now, because that would be abject heresy. So no, I think you're probably right about what it's trying to do. And the three forms of unity is a good confession. The Belgic Confession's a good confession. The Westminster speaks in the same way, and all of that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think you're on the right track there. Definitely something to talk with your pastor about, most likely. All right. Next question: what's the best way to leave a church over the social justice issue, both regarding the elders and the friends there? Yeah, I think the best way is to leave with all your cards on the table. You know what I mean? No secrets. No, don't hold anything back. I'm not talking about going out in a blaze of glory. Like, you don't want to make, oh, you're the evil. Like, you don't want to like be an accuser and stuff like that. But you just have to lay out all your cards on the table. This is what I cannot put up with. I can't be a part of these things. I think these things are dangerous. Be specific, because if you're going to leave a church, I think that it's best to know exactly where the lines are. You know what I mean? You know, Pastor, this is what's going on. I just can't be a part of it for these reasons. These are the dangers. This is the problem. You know, lay it all out on the table. Not trying to hurt your feelings, but I want you to, it's important to me to know that you know where I'm coming from. It's not personal, but this is what I have to do. To me, the worst thing is when someone leaves a church and either never hear from them again, or there's like they're holding back stuff, right? There's ambiguity. There's not clarity with why this has happened. I think that's the best way. As far as friends are concerned, I mean, I don't think that you're saying that they're apostates, or I don't think that they're going to treat you like you're an apostate. So you should keep your friends. But again, no secrets. You know, I'm laying all my cards on the table. You know what I mean? This is what's going on. This is why I'm leaving. We can still hang out. We can still do whatever. But that's the situation. I don't think you're a bad person if you stay. You know, whatever it is, whatever the truth is, you gotta go with that. I think that's pretty much always the best policy. The secrets and all one of the things I hated about corporate life is the secret meetings and the closed door meetings. You never quite knew the angle of people. I hate that stuff. I could never be a politician. You know what I mean? I could never be a politician. I don't think I could ever operate in in like a very structured denomination where there were secret, you know, meetings and agendas. I just can't deal with that stuff. I'm no good at it, and I hate it, and I call it out, and it just doesn't work. So thanks for the question. I appreciate it. And I'll be praying for you, because it sounds like you're about to leave a church, and that's never easy. And I'll be praying for you, man. I will. Next question. I have been busy renovating some things in my new house, and I haven't had much time to watch your videos. I have been catching up these last few days, and you said in a previous video that if the government would force you to put your kids in public school, you would flee. What does that look like? Where would you go? I have had the same thoughts. Yeah, this is a serious question, because I could see this happening. You know what I mean? This is not only hypothetical. I mean, the government is crazy. You know what I mean? And this is not out of the realm of possibility. I don't know, man. I might be crossing the border to Mexico. Yeah, I'm not even joking. I might go to Mexico. As far as definitive plans, it's really hard to say. It's really hard to say. If I were ever to be an expat, there's certain countries where it's easier to be. Dominican Republic is somewhat easy to get a passport and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if I would go that route or just leave for a time or whatever, but it's I don't know what it looks like, man. I don't know what it looks like. But I'd have to figure it out. You know what I mean? Mexico is probably the most attractive because it's the most not structured. You could probably hide out in Mexico. You know what I mean? I could get by on the language, as well. I'm not totally fluent, but I could definitely get by. But yeah, man, that's a serious thing. I'm not giving my kids to Caesar. There's just no question about it. It's not going to happen. And so, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a tough one. All right, 2 more. According to the Bible, what would be the just penalty for someone found guilty of election fraud? That is an interesting question. I don't know. I mean, it would have to be restitution-based of some kind. I'd like to say just beat them. Just a public beating, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. That is a very, very good question because it's a serious issue. And it's almost like it's a type of treason. It's a type of treason. And I wonder if you could make the argument that kind of thing would be, I don't know. That's a good one. I don't know. I kind of like the beating idea. I don't know. Hey, man, you stumped me. You stumped me. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into that one. I haven't thought about that ever, which is interesting because of all the election fraud that's been going on. I'm gonna do some research on that one, man. That's a good one. And when I find out the answer, man, I'll get back to you. Good question, man. Good question. Last one. Here we go. You guys always stump me, man. This is good. All right. Have you seen any cases where employers are forcing vaccinations? Any advice for people who don't want to do that? I have not, and I deal with a lot of employers all the time, and I have not seen forced vaccinations. I have seen pressure, and some of it is simply peer pressure where everyone's showing their little stick and stuff like that. And some of it is a little bit more heavy peer pressure where you talk to your manager or, when are you getting your vaccine? And it's asked just like that. When are you scheduled to get it? And it's called the assumptive close in the sales business. And it's very uncomfortable for people to be like, yeah, I'm not really planning on getting it, and all that. So I have not seen it. Where an employer is forcing vaccination, my advice is to be straight up. You know what I mean? Again, this has kind of been a theme for this video, is just to be straight up and say, hey, I don't want to make this harder than it has to be. Mr. Manager or HR, whoever it is, but I'm not comfortable getting the vaccine, and I have no plans to get it. And make sure you have your reasons ready so that you're ready to go. And but I do want to work here. You know what I mean? I do want to work here. I enjoy my job, but I'm not gonna get the vaccine. And you kind of have to just ride it out and see what happens. I bet that some businesses will back off at that point. They're not expecting someone to just say that in a reasonable way. But I think that there will some that will fire you. There are some that will fire you, and you need to be ready for that eventuality. You got to read your company, though. You got to read your company. If you work for a company that you think that's highly likely that that'll happen, I would start getting your resume together now. I would start getting it together now. I would start taking a look at your network and reaching out to people and stuff like that. Now's the time. And the good news is that it's a good job market for a lot of skill sets, a really good job market for a lot of skill sets. So don't wait for it to come to you to get prepared. You know what I mean? Get prepared now. If you need to save a little money, save a little income, just plan for it to come, especially if you think your company's likely to go that route, and plan for it. But yeah, I hope that doesn't happen, brother. I hope, and all that. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the Patreon Q&A. God bless you. I had a good time with it. And again, let me just say thank you so much for all the support over the years and all that kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to end. Have a great rest of your night, and I hope you found this video helpful. God bless.